Soundbite NFTs. Kristopher Krash. He's NFT producer, and in the late 90s, Kristopher toured in electronic band that opened for Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers. Since then, he has written and produced a popular audio story series called The Spellcast that uses sound collage to create environments and atmospheres. And right now, he has a comic book released as an NFT collection on Aspen.
How's everyone doing? Good. Okay, so this is like the future of sample and sound libraries. If you, as we know, and this is time to get, you really got me, is a riff, right? And Dave Davies would like to get, he'd like to get credit for his riff, and he'd like to get royalties on his riff when it's reused. Sampling has always been the norm in music and sound production, as we know. Artists get royalties and credit for their hooks, should get, royalties and credit for their hooks. And Dave Davies should get, the benefit from the You Really Got Me riff. Sound effect libraries have value in video and podcast production too. Foley artists put a lot of effort in creating sounds. And sound patches for synths and samplers are also unique creations that should be rewarded. Back in the 90s, we used to have these records. These were kind of like audio tools. And DJs used to get these records. This is an example. It's by this band called Antenna, Tool, and Dot. And it was kind of a very beautiful, the record itself is a beautiful work of art. And people used to collect these records, DJs, and especially here in the New York scene, though this also was popular in London and Berlin and Tokyo. They would have these records, and these records would have like little sound bits, right, on one side and the other side. And you can actually, you would buy two of these records and use side one on one turntable and side two on the other turntable. And you would kind of like create these sound things that, you're playing with someone else's tools. They've made all the samples, and then you make the music with their samples. So this was something that was, I was kind of part of the scene, used to make some records as well. So the one thing that's really good is that it's a midway between ownership and tribute to the artist. So all sound bites are authorized for use, but they can be traced back to their creator. And the creator maintains credit on the sound bite. And the buyer of the soundbite co-owns it and can resell it. The creator can still collect royalties on the resale. So it can be used for a lot of different things: music hooks, instruments, character voices, even AI voices. I'm going to show you an example of how we're using it for sound effects. Some of the sound libraries, these are actual NFT sound libraries that are out there. One is called Slam Sounds. I don't know how many people are familiar with what a sample pack is. But yeah, with them, you have sample packs, you have beats, you have sessions. So these are things that you can get, like, these libraries, and you can use them. And there's another one called Elixir, which is has sound libraries, synth patches, which is kind of interesting, and sound effects. So synth patches are like, specific synth sounds that you can download and you can have a library of. So sorry about how this thing is all kind of falls through, but we do a podcast series called The Werewolves of Brooklyn. It's kind of a very old-time radio style podcast. And in that, but what we have done is we didn't really want to have advertising, in our podcast, because we have a little bit of irreverence, like Mad Magazine from the 70s. So we didn't want to have, advertising in there and make it sound like we're like, it just wouldn't work with what we do. So we decided to try to sell our sound effect library, because we put a lot of work into our Foley and into our sound effects, and even also sometimes our theme sounds, some of the spooky sounds. It's like old time radio, but it's a unique style and it's a unique sound. So we have a sound effect library on Aspen, which allows you to, its environments, Foley, character voices are in there too. We even have we haven't made the full agreement, but because Steve Buscemi's in this, in our audio series, and Noel Fielding is in 2 episodes, we would like to use their character voices, but we can actually track it back to them. So this is kind of like, it could be a springboard for other old-time radio style podcasts. So it's kind of like we're creating the tools for other people to make old-time radio style podcasts. And it's in the spirit of, there were things like open source kind of stories, like Jerry Cornelius, if you're familiar with Michael Moorcock's Jerry Cornelius series. It's kind of, he's the same guy who did Elric, Milne, B'nai. And H.P. Lovecraft, everyone knows, the Cthulhu series. He made that open source so anybody can utilize the characters and the story styles and anything to make their own Cthulhu stories. So this is a quote from Illmind. This is actually a use case for NFT that I can get behind, and that I generally think is better than the way it's currently done. So, this is actually something that helps the artists. So a lot of artists would support this, so it's easy to get artists in. So I went through all my slides pretty quickly. So does anyone have any questions or any ideas or any thoughts that you'd like to share? Yeah?
Maybe I came in very late, so sorry if you have answered that. You have sample packs and you have mentioned synth voices and so on. So are these prepared for something like archive or other musical instruments where you can just import them because of synths?
Oh, yeah. I mean, synth sounds are, sometimes they're specific to the software that they belong to, right? So synths, but there's synth packs. As you know, if you've been online and you have synthesizers, you can download synth packs. As a matter of fact, what we have is actually kind of interesting because we use, the one that we use the most is a Mellotron thing, GeForce Mellotron. So our packs actually go for that. So if you're specifically using the GeForce Mellotron, it's like probably one of the most popular Mellotrons because Tony Visconti is behind it and stuff. So who's the producer of David Bowie. So it's a pretty good.
So the NFT is more the right management, and the sample pack or the synth voices I'm downloading are in the normal file format used for the extension you were talking about.
Yes. So the one thing is that when you get that sample pack, if you get the synth patch, it allows the credit to go to the artist who created the patch, right? Because behind the scenes you have a blockchain that says you bought this pack. This is the artist has designed this sound, and there could be an agreement is if you make money on that. So if you have a hit record, that artist gets a percentage. So it goes to the artist who created the sound. So even, and it's really good for samples. If you made a sample, if you made a hook, like I just said, I used the David Davies hook because everyone knows it. But if you did that da-na-na-na-na and used it in a song, or if it got in a movie, he could get credit for it, and he could get royalties if that thing is making money. That could be in the agreement.
Yeah. But the connection between the NFT I have used and the song I'm then producing, there is not really a connection. So then it's...
Well, the connection is actually in the blockchain agreement. So, blockchain, the reason why you're doing an NFT, the real reason for an NFT is that you're putting it on the blockchain and you can make legal documentation behind everything. And yeah. Okay. So anyway, thanks a lot. Have a good day.